Okay, so this is a serious start to the Blender 102 class for Tuesday, July the... What is today? Like the 10th, I think? I lose track of the days, I really do. It's the 10th. Ah, I got it on the
Yay!
first guess. Look at me.
You were right.
Look at me go. So,
Well, that was good job you got it right, because that was slick.
it was slick. Well, so we're going
If you got it wrong, it would look
Shut
silly.
up, Gav. I'm trying to teach a class. So today we are going to continue on with the model that we started, and I'm going to give you guys sort of a heads up, just a general sort of that all of this stuff down here, I am probably going to strap C4 explosives to it and just blow it up and rebuild it. But I'm not going to focus on that right now. For now, I'm just going to sit there and be irritated every time I look at it and not waste any significant time on it. Today, we are going, well, we're not going to tap spacebar to minimize the viewport because that's actually Maya, but we're going to start building the hand and the arms. Now, here's the cool thing. This whole character, the whole thing, is a pretty basic character, I'm not going to lie. I mean, really, you guys just got done with like a fundamentals class where you made, what was it, like a bouncing ball that plays golf? And that class was relatively cool. I mean, it was more advanced than it should have been for a beginner class. If I ever teach the class again, I may come up with an even simpler project. But what I'm not really pushing people to make, super photorealistic characters at this point. So what I'm going to do is show you guys a really, really cool system to come up with a hand. Because, I mean, just let me know. For those of you who are following along, you should all be in BuzzNet anyway. Who in here has ever tried to model a human hand? Gav, you don't count. There's a lot of no's. There's a lot more no's than I thought. Okay, who among you who have tried it, who had a really, really hard time with it and just thought it was nightmarish? Anybody, like, scared? Okay. Pain in the wrist. Okay, yeah, not too bad. Okay. All right, who has never done it and is terrified anyway, like just on principle? I just want to know. All right. Y'all are a bunch of fraidy cats. Jeez. Okay, so here's how we're going to do this. First off, I guess I should go ahead and start modeling and quit talking. Let's go to add. I'm going to bring in a mesh, and let's bring in a cube. Oh, God, they always stick it in the dead center. And then they do this, because, you're supposed to have turned off clipping before you get all the way to this point, which, that's annoying. So let me undo that. Let me reach over, turn off clipping, and then we'll add our cube. Thank you. Hit G, pull it over here, and there you go. We've just modeled the best hand ever, basically. Let me turn this off. I would like to be able to see through my model just a little bit. And obviously we have some scaling and what not to do. So, what not to do. So let me scale this down and rotate it a bit. So obviously what I'm doing here is I'm kind of getting this lined up with about where the palm should be, right? So there's a couple of different ways to go about making hands. You can make them out of cubes, and that's just box modeling, and everybody's seen box modeling. And of course, there's really nothing wrong with that. You want to see another trick? I mean, of course you do. You're going to say yes to probably any such question that I ask, but God, that sounds horrible when you say it that way, doesn't it? I am going to switch over to faces real quick, and just for shiggles, I'm going to kill out all the faces except for one. So, I mean, really, we could have used a plane. But this is just, for the fun of it. Because I don't often get to show this to people and stuff. I haven't actually done a modeling class in a minute, so you guys will have to forgive me if I'm a little excitable. All right, now, in our drawing, we can see kind of where the hands go. And what I'm going to do is take this plane, and I'm going to put it right at the back of the palm. Like so. It doesn't have to be exact. I mean, we only have 4 vertices, so spending time making it exact would just be a pain in the butt. Where is its normal? Wolf Knightley, you tell me where its normal is. I deleted all but the backmost face of that cube, so which way is the normal pointing? You should already know. It's in the back. Very good. We're going to have to keep that in mind later on when we start playing with normals. Right now, yeah, I'm not too worried about it. Normals are one of those things you can just fix later. So let's switch over to vertices and flip this around, and I'm just kind of outlining the corners of the palm. Does your palm have corners? No. We make them up because we're modelers. Okay, so now we've got that. We can switch over to a side view and, probably get away with pulling these in just a little bit. Oh, you know what I should do, just for you guys, because I love you all so much, is make sure that my screencast keys are on, so you can see me, middle click like a million times. Okay.
I knew there was something I'd forgotten.
Yeah, well, there usually is. That's kind of how my life works. Okay, so let's see here. Let's hit Control-Tab-F. Let's grab faces, and let's hit E and do an extrusion. Now, an interesting thing is that this will leave us a nice remnant polygon. Not all pieces of software do this. Sometimes when you do an extrusion like that, this face will be missing. But fortunately, because this is Blender, we get one, which is very cool. Let's go back to the front view. That's not the front view. This is the front view. And we can start adding some detail into this. Now, anybody in BuzzNet who, a streeter, you're not participating. That's cool. I'll just ask you a question. By the way, if you guys are participating, if you're following along, trying to model the same things that I'm modeling, I would ask that you please turn on Participate over inside of BuzzNet. And I did get a question from Lawrence Balam, or is it Blam? Lawrence Balam, like a big gun going off. I'm sorry, I'm not making fun of your name. I wish I kind of had a name like that. Said, how have you turned off Mesh Smooth Modifier, or how have you turned Mesh Smooth Modifier off for that one object? Well, all I did was come over here to the Mesh Smooth Modifier. You see this little eyeball? Here, I'll make this really big so you can see. This little eyeball? Just click that, and that turns the modifier on and off. I probably didn't need to make that big, but really that's all there is to it. Now, it's actually working for the entire body, because when I added this cube, I was in edit mode. Now, if you weren't in edit mode for some reason, if you were still in object mode, that's okay for now. It won't be the end of your life. I'm not going to come over to your house with a mallet or anything like that. But we will have to later on hit Control-J and join them so that they're the same object. Either way is fine with me right now. I say improvise, and don't beat yourself up if you get a little bit different. Okay, Streeter, since you're not participating, I'm going to put you on the spot, and really it's only because you announced that you weren't participating, and I feel particularly vicious today. If I was going to add some edges running from the wrist out to the ends of the palm, how many edges do you think I need to put in to add fingers? So if I want fingers, how many edges should I put in? 3. Yeah, everybody who is not Streeter who just answered that question failed. Wolf Nightly, I mean, you could put 7, but I wouldn't. Start with 3. Keep it simple. So Control-R, and I'll roll my mouse wheel up and add in 3 edges and click. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what I wanted. Control-Tab-V to switch over to vertices, hit A to deselect everything, hit B to drag out some more vertices. And then I'm just going to start... A. I keep thinking I'm in Maya. It's fantastic. I love it when that happens. And just start putting these right between the fingers. It's pretty basic, pretty standard, pretty easy, yeah? Oh. I really did spend all
It's always the B that bites me. I've everything else, you box select and it box selects and you don't have to hit box select.
Yeah. Well, here's a quick thing about hands that a lot of folks, I feel, overlook, is that there's a lot of arcing to the hands, a lot of curves. Like, just forget about the fingers. The fingers are the easiest part. I mean, they're tubes with some lumps for knuckles. But if you look at the end of the palm, there's usually some curvature there, even on your own palm. It's just, you don't think about it. In a lot of cases, people will draw a palm with a flat end, and the end of your palm is generally anything but flat. So pay attention to that curvature. And then if you were to look at a palm like dead on, like straight down your hand, like if you were to point your fingers back at your hand, there's often some curvature this way as well, though we're not going to stress that just yet. We're going to take our time. So here we go in this direction. Let's check the side view and just see how we're doing in terms of overall palm thickness. It seems like we could probably hit A first, then hit B, drag all these guys out. Didn't really mean to select these guys, so I'll just deselect them real quick. And hit G and just slide them forward. Now you'll notice something. I'm not being super precise with any of my motions. I generally am not when I'm doing organic modeling. I just kind of make it up as I go. And I get good results. But that's mostly because I take a look at this kind of stuff as a very artistic process. And if I break something, that's fine. That's why we have the dissolve feature and delete faces and stuff like that. You have the world's best 3D eraser at your fingertips. Okay, so you should have a shape that's roughly like this. Now what I want to do is give a really quick ready check for those who are following along to see who got to this point. Okay, so we've got our really, really basic palm nicely set up. Now, there's some things we can infer. This is obviously going to be where the index finger comes out. Then we have the middle finger, the ring finger, and the pinky finger. We can make some adjustments even at this stage of the game, even though like the drawing kind of shows sort of one thing, and we've got those pretty centered up. I mean, obviously we can make a few changes, like hit B, grab these points, and drag them in just a little bit tighter. Now, some things to keep in mind when making fingers. One, start by shaping the palm properly. If you get a good-looking palm, the fingers will pretty much take care of themselves, and that's one of my favorite things. So we can start by grabbing this vertex. I'm going to try to, let me show perspective. I'm not sure which one will help you guys more, perspective or orthographic, but rotating around an orthographic view generally gives my brain fits. So this is the edge of the palm over where the pinky is. This is the face where the pinky would come out. And what I'm going to do is kind of pull that down a little bit, and pull down the next vertex, and pull down the next vertex, and pull the next one down just a little bit, and then pull the index finger one down as well. So you see it kind of makes a hump that kind of ends right about at the middle finger, which is exactly how the thickness of your real palm works, which is very cool. Also, take a look at the back of the hand and start pulling these vertices backwards, back up the hand. And if you take a look at the skin, the flesh in between your fingers, you'll actually see why we're doing this, because that has kind of a backward slant to it. And this is the foundation where we're going to be starting the fingers. So again, get the palm right, and the fingers will kind of take care of themselves. So there's your palm shape, right? Now, obviously, if we just had four-sided fingers, that will work on some characters. It really, really will. And Gav, are you really linking Pinky and the brain clips?
What on earth? Talking to? Oh, I see. Somebody mentioned that. No, I've never even seen that. I'm linking the Hyper Highs anatomy tutorial.
Ah, yes. Okay. Sorry, you got me all freaked out for just a minute. All right, what I'm going to do is add an edge right down the side of our hand. Now, what that's going to do, in essence, I mean, even that, yeah, okay, so we've got this edge running down and everything, but the big deal, the reason I'm doing that, is that it gives us 8 edges to go around each finger. 8 edges is really nice to define roundness along with knuckles and whatnot. So I think that's a really good way to start. Oh, yes, sir?
Is that not 6?
Is that 6? It is 6. I'm sorry, it's 6. I can't count, okay? Give me a break. No, yeah.
I had to count 3 times before I accused you of being wrong.
Yeah, it's like Star Trek. There are 4 lights. He's like, yeah, I swear, there's not. Yeah, I'm sorry. Totally misspoke. That's 6 edges and not 8. We don't, yeah, let's just continue. Let me just waltz right past that like nothing ever happened. Let's go back to the front view. Now, obviously, we're getting some things lined up in this view. And in this view, we can't really tell until we go into wireframe. We're close on the knuckles, but it looks to me like we could grab the vertices at the knuckles like so, and give them a little bit more volume like that. So just pull them out a little bit. Now, if we switch back to the front view, obviously there's some shaping to the palm we need to worry about. And the first thing I generally do is hit Control-R, and I'll just drop an edge loop right in here toward the center of everything. And now let's just focus on some rounding. Now, a quick note. I generally do not mess with where I'm going to be pulling out the fingers for a while, but we can round out the rest of the hand. For instance, we have these vertices, which define the upper top, kind of where the thumb's going to come out. So we can take these and just start to add a little bit of rounding. Now, a thing about doing that, you saw us pull those out, right? Keep track of the thickness you are defining, because you may need to grab some of the vertices that were already there and pull them back in slightly. What do I mean? Well, if I grab these central edges here at the center outer edge of the hand, we just created a second ago, if I was to pull those out to create some rounding, I may go outside my drawing a little bit, which is fine, but I can offset that with the remaining vertices to get my rounding back.
And this is one of those we were talking before about, don't add in more geometry than you need. And it's very easy to, because of the number of different curvatures in a hand,
Yeah.
to just end up with far too much geometry far too soon.
And you can if you're not careful. In fact, I'm kind of walking a fine line, as I generally do when creating hands, with making more geometry than I need, but I've just found after making several of them that this method works really well for me. Now, if later on in your travels you decide that there's another way that you like to make hands that works better for you, then of course that's amazing. Use that and forget everything I taught you. Or, some of the things I taught you anyway. Let's see. Now, some other stuff I want to do here. Let me rotate over here. I'm going to hit faces, and I'm basically going to nuke out all these faces. You might as well make a hole here. There's really no reason not to. Switch back over to vertices, and we'll just start kind of positioning these. Okay, now this kind of sideways edge that we dropped in here, as you make it to where the thumb sprouts out, adjust the topology slightly so this goes to right back where the thumb is going to reconnect to the palm. So in effect, this edge is doing a couple of things. It's giving us more power for rounding, which is much needed at this stage, but it's also giving us the basis for where the thumb is going to begin, also very important. Streeter wanted to let me know that's what the O key is for.
I know.
That's not what it's. That's not what it's for on my keyboard. All right, and I'm going to do just some general reshaping of the palm. I've got all these vertices here that are in these nice kind of nasty straight lines, and so in a lot of cases when you're building a model from drawings of this nature, you don't have a lot of detail on parts like the hands. That is, unless you've got a lot of drawings of the hands and you're actually modeling these in a separate file. There's all kinds of different ways to approach this sort of stuff. But what I will often do is just, if I'm doing a human anyway, I'll just look at my hand and say, what part is thicker, what part is thinner, and then just create some general rounding. Because in the end, once it starts to look more like a hand, you'll start to be more readily able to see what's working and what isn't, and you can make adjustments from there. So I want to give another quick ready check for people to kind of get to this point with things just a little bit more rounded. You got this one equatorial sort of edge running around, and we'll just kind of see where things go. Okay, so we've got something kind of a nice start for our palm. We can go in a couple of different directions here. We can go ahead and make a really nice looking palm, or we can go ahead and begin on the fingers. I really have no opinion as to which one you're going to do. So just for the fun of it, let's go ahead and begin a finger. Now, I generally think the index is a good one to start on, but again, that's one of those things that doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and switch to faces. I'm going to grab these two faces, and you guessed it, we're going to extrude them. Again, there's another way to go about this. You can make a full extrusion that goes all the way to the tip of your finger and then just add edges to sort out the rest of the shape, or you can just do one little extrusion at the time. Either one's fine with me. So if you feel more comfortable just going one little extrusion at a time, if jumping all the way to the end makes you nervous, then, do what feels comfortable. I'm going to move this guy out to the tip of the finger and then scale it down. And then we have some reshaping to do, obviously, because that just doesn't look like a fingertip really at all, does it? So let's switch over to...
Spherize magically help you here?
You probably could just run it like 2-sphere, but I'm not gonna.
Fair enough.
Also, rotate around it a little bit, and I'm actually rotating around it a lot. In fact, I'm upside down right now. See, I'm making kind of a little bit of a chisel tip, as you can see there, and then we double check from the front view. That's not bad. And then we double check from the side view, and we can see the whole thing could move forward.
One thing that I've found myself just doing now that I'm in sort of working in Blender more than Max is if I'm doing extrusions that aren't square to the axes, I'll just extrude for nothing and then
move it yourself
from there.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it does do that weird sort of exploding geometry thing.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. It's just one of those, you know. See, the way I look at it is I'm probably gonna have to wiggle all those vertices around anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't care. And do whatever you want to, Blender. I'll fix it later. Okay, so you have this really odd-looking extrusion that looks very, very vaguely finger-like. We can go ahead and take this edge and run it kind of down the side of the finger. If you need to clean up these central seams that run down the length of the finger, do that now. Don't wait. Just because what we're about to do is add a whole bunch of edges around this finger, and you don't want to have to clean them up over and over again. So get things kind of centered up early on, and it'll make your life a lot easier. Okay, the first edge we're going to add. Just hit, let me show this in perspective. Let's hit Control R, and I'm going to drag this way back toward the base. Now, let's scale it in slightly. Obviously, you can't leave it like that. Yes, Gavin?
Sorry, Wolf had a question that he'd addressed to me where I said what I meant was I would extrude it for no length.
Yeah, basically do an extrusion, but then right-click.
From there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here, I'll actually show you real quick. Here's what it means. Like, you're to make an extrusion, go ahead and tap E, but then just like right-click and nullify all motion. Now the extrusion still took place, but it hasn't been moved yet. So now you can just tap G and then move it exactly where you need it to go. Now why would you want to do that? Well, I can show you that too. If I grab several different faces that are all pointing off in different directions, and I hit E, now in this case they're doing a nice version, a nice not exploding. They're just moving along the common normal, which is great, but they are moving in kind of a random direction that I would have to fix if I extrude it out too far. But if I right-click and hit G, I can pull them right to where I want them. So I'm pretty sure that's all Gav was talking about. Is that about right?
Yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Alright, so this bottommost edge at the bottom of the finger, I'm going to pull forward so it's mostly flush with the palm. And you see how that kind of makes everything sort of indent and narrow out to allow room for the finger. Let's switch over to vertices. I can pull this to even it out a little bit, pull out to create some rounding. And the great thing about working this way is that you can start using these vertices right away to start rounding out your finger. And it also goes...
While you're modeling on. Oh, sorry.
Yes, exactly. It also gives you a nice ability to create kind of the little fleshy area in between the fingers. As long as you're paying attention to that. So like back here, we can start pulling these back just a little bit further. Or is it farther in this case? I think it'd be farther. Because they actually have a real distance.
Surely. I hadn't really thought about that.
Alright, so now let's jump back over to the front view. And let's go to wireframe. Now, I like to keep the geometry addition, particularly when doing things like hands and fingers, as simple as I can for as long as I can. So kind of round some things out. Let that central edge handle the bulk of the thickness. So we have two major knuckles along the length of our fingers. Let's hit Control R and we'll just add two edges in. Grab one of them and put them right about where the first knuckle is going to be. Or is that the second knuckle? I think it depends on which direction you're counting. Be the second knuckle. It's really all we're doing is just defining where those knuckles are going to be. Go ahead at this stage and once again start adjusting for finger thickness. Because there's a lot more irregularity in fingers than a lot of beginner modelers would have you think. So many folks who are just getting into modeling will make fingers that are just very tube-like, and they have sort of a constant taper to them. Now that's great for certain types of stylized characters, but if you're making anything with any level of realism to it, it's not going to help you very much. So we have added some irregularity in this direction. Now we need to add some from here. It's probably a good idea to double check the side view and just see what we can see, but the fact of the matter is we just can't see very much. We can see maybe pull this out a little bit, and I wouldn't move this very far. We just don't have a lot of detail to do much in this direction, but that's okay. That's no worries. I might grab these two and just, let me just verify kind of where we are. Pull those back slightly. And I can't see exactly which one I have selected, so I'll just grab the front and then click back over, like so. Like the old user view trick from Max.
We'd have a couple of people asking, how did you rotate the finger forward when you're in the side view?
How did I rotate the finger forward in side view? I didn't rotate the finger forward in side view. That doesn't make any sense. I don't understand. How did I rotate the finger forward in the side view? Do you mean just do this?
I imagine you...
I mean, that's just using my viewport controls. You pulled it forward. I did no such thing.
Oh, you may well have moved the angle. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what folks are meaning by that. It was sticking out backwards, then you brought it forward to match the drawing. Very, very early on, after the very first extrusion, I went to the side view and I grabbed these two faces, which at the time there was no detail in here. It was just the faces at the very tip of the finger, and I can't select them without getting solidified. And I pulled them forward so that they lined up with the drawing, because they were back here, and then I just slid them forward, because the y-axis is one of your primary motion axes in the side view. So there's nothing special about that at all. I don't think I have enough undos to get all the way back there. Not with all the work I've been doing. No, we're done. Let me send it all the way back up.
It's Control-Shift-Z, not Control-Y?
Yeah, I already hit it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure what you mean. I wish I could. Do you have a microphone, Annie? Do you want to talk and see if you can explain it over voice? Okay, well, let's just try that, because you're not. It's not clear enough to me.
I love show my screen. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, cool.
Hey.
Okay, hello. How are you? If you see the finger, see the side view, the whole finger itself. You see how mine is just sticking back.
Yeah.
Earlier, you had selected the whole finger, and then you just brought it forward to line up with the drawing of the hand. And I just can't recreate that to save my life.
Oh, no, that's because I wasn't selecting the entire finger. I was just grabbing those vertices at the tip of it.
Oh, and so did you use G for grab?
Yeah.
Or
yeah, just
okay,
grab those, tap G, move them forward. Yep.
Oh, simple things in life. Okay, thank you so much.
No worries.
Okay. That did it. Okay, I got to write that down.
Yeah.
Okay, grab. Okay, so thank you.
You're welcome. And let me figure out how to work. There we go. Ha! And show my screen again. Welcome back. Alright, so let me see here. Back over to the front view, and a little bit of cleanup here, and switch over to edges, and grab this edge, and hit G, grab this edge, tug it forward very, very slightly. Okay, I think this is a pretty good time for a brief ready check, so let's go ahead and do that. Lawrence had a question. It seems that his image planes are a little out of whack, so let's see if we can just pop over there and see if he's done something to adjust them somehow.
Possibly nudge the scaling slightly.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Hello?
Actually, with the image... Hello?
I can hear you, Lawrence, but I can't see you.
Ah, hello.
There you go.
I think I may have answered my own question. So we're looking at the index finger, and I'm guessing it ends about there.
It does. Yeah,
I'm looking at the wrong fingers.
zoom in a little bit. Yeah, zoom in a little bit more closely. And yeah, you can just make out the curvature for the index finger pretty much right there where you're working. So it's that right there. Yeah, right. That's the index finger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I was getting it confused with this one here. So
yeah, that's
what I meant was it looked fine in the screen.
Yeah, no worries. Bound to happen.
I was looking at the wrong finger. Yeah.
All right.
It's all right. It's my own stupidity.
No problem at all. No problem at all.
Cheers.
Mm-hmm. And there we go. All right.
I was wondering whether this might be, you might want to mention about how you can go ahead and hide part of your geometry. Aside from anything else, there's starting to be quite a bit of lag when you're rotating around.
Is there really?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah.
Can you do I break up like a Cylon when I do this?
No, video lag is just not.
Oh,
it stops capturing for a while.
Yeah, that's probably bound to happen, though. I mean, this model's going to get.
But I was just thinking it would also make reading the hand image planes possibly a bit easier without if you hid the body.
All right, Gavin.
I was just.
Let's just do it Gavin's way.
After all, who's modelling this thing?
Yeah, exactly. Actually, in most cases, I would probably just separate the two and just turn one off.
Yeah, I was just. Yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Okay,
but
most folks.
I was just thinking for didactic purposes.
Most folks seem to be ready, so let's go ahead and continue. All right. So we've got one finger kind of started. We have obviously a lot more detail that we need to add to this finger. So I'm going to hit Control R and add one edge right in the middle of each section. Just one. Now, if I hit my period key and kind of frame up on that and go back to perspective for just a moment. This will take you a moment if you're totally new to modeling out hands, fingers, etc. and so forth. Keep in mind which edge you're looking at. You got to remember, these are the knuckles. Here's one knuckle, here's another knuckle. These other edges are in between the knuckles. So we can grab one and pull it down just slightly, and then maybe just grab the vertices that are on top as I put my manipulator away. And just pull those down just a little bit, because all we're really shooting for here is just a tiny little bit of indentation between the knuckles. It just makes the knuckles a little more pronounced. And you can see how that's working.
And if this is the first time you're modelling fingers, you'll probably find there'll be a lot of back and forth.
Actually, if it's
getting this between being invisible when it's smooth,
yeah,
that you've moved at all, and hugely over the top.
If
it kind of takes a while to get used to it.
Yeah, if it's the 17th time you've modeled fingers or the 70th time you've modeled fingers, you may find it takes a little bit of back and forth. It's one of those things. And remember to occasionally check out your smooth model as well. I still wouldn't worry too much about pulling the cage around to make the smooth mesh line up too closely with the drawing. We still have some more edges to add, and as we do that, of course, that's going to change the way the smooth cage is actually pulled around. Okay, so once you have those kind of positioned, it's time to start defining the knuckles a little more closely. Now, there's a couple of different ways we could end up doing that. I mean, we could use a bevel, or we could drop an edge on either side of these. I don't really care which one you want to do, but here's the way I'm going to do this. So let's hit Control R, and I'll bring an edge right up behind this knuckle. Jump to the other side, hit Control R, and bring an edge right up in front of the knuckle, like so. Now, if we take a look at this from the side, here's generally how I will shape these vertices on a knuckle. I'll take the ones just behind the knuckle and pull them back and down a bit. I'll take the ones just in front of the knuckle and I'll pull them forward and down a little bit, and then I can grab the ones right in the center of the knuckle and just pull them out very slightly. Felt more than seen. And then I'm just kind of smoothing out what takes place along the sides of the finger. Now you see I've done some wacky things with the geometry flow here, so I'll just pull those back together. You see we're sort of flaring out there for the flesh of the knuckle. Clean this up very slightly. Now, next, we've got a little bit of a forward slant to our geometry that I'd like to clean up, so I'm just going to grab faces here and here, and we'll sort of just drag those forward a little bit. Switch back to vertices real fast, and clean this up. Another little trick that I like to do, and it generally works nicely with fingers, is to grab these edges, or this one edge, technically two vertices, in the center of the knuckle, and just pull them back a little bit, and it creates a nice indentation on the bottom of the finger. And really, that's about all there is to it. So let's do a quick ready check for people to get that first knuckle in place. Okay, so let's go ahead and tackle the next knuckle. It really is more of the same, but let's see if we can do it in a slightly different manner. So I'm going to select this edge and hit W, and I'll bevel it. And let's just take the bevel percentage and I'll pull it down, make it relatively tight. And then since we can't add extra edges in between those, I'll just hit Control R and add one edge right in between. It does the same thing as before, it's just another way to go about it, that's all. Now, just like before, I'm going to grab the edge on top and I'll pull it out slightly. Kind of separate these edges at the front and back of the knuckle. You can also kind of scale them down, which, I mean, is essentially the same thing I did when I had the vertices selected before. I just kind of went about it in a slightly different way. And there you go. Now, some other little things that I would probably do would be to switch over to vertices and create a little more rounding on top of the finger just by bringing these vertices a bit closer together all the way around, but leaving things relatively flat on the underside of the finger.
And because it is incredibly easy to end up, even when if you've got
you fade it out there. What'd you say?
I said it's relatively easy, even if you've got image planes right in front of you, to end up modeling what you think it looks like. Because you just get focused on moving verts around and forget to look at your images. And particularly with anything human, really, where we're so used to seeing it all the time, and our brains are hardwired for it.
Right.
Yeah, stuff and things.
Okay, yeah, you just turned into Nelson right there. And I think I'll slide all these in just a little bit. All right, so at this point you should have a finger that is completely done. So rather than give a ready check for that, let's go ahead and move on to the next point, which is going to be pretty easy overall. And that is to take, well, let me turn off my smooth real quick so you guys can see the actual geometry for just a moment. I'm going to switch over to faces and grab this face, this face, this face, this face, and this face. And delete those faces. They're gone. Goodbye. We don't need them. Next, let's grab all the faces for our finger. So I'll hit Z, let's see, I'll hit B and just drag out something around those guys. And then, let's see here, we can just hit Control plus and go all the way up to the base of the finger. Good idea to kind of verify that's exactly what you have selected, because sometimes you just don't know, right? Then, once you have that, just hit Shift D, and duplicate it. Because as it turns out, one finger is really pretty much the same as all of your fingers. They're all kind of like clones of each other with a little bit of adjustment. So let's jump around. Let's go ahead and just drop this off. Let's jump around to the front view. And we can rotate this, and we can position it. Now, the way I would position it would be to basically line it up with the base of the finger first, and then worry about the details. So essentially get it kind of lined up with where the palm is going to be, and then we'll get the rest of its attachment sort of lined up, and then we'll worry about making it actually work for the appropriate length, knuckle placement, etc., and so forth. So a little more rotation there, and then just switch over to the side view. I mean, it seems to be working pretty well, but we have a pretty good bit of menial labor to do to get it attached back into the hand. Now, nothing major, of course. I would just start here, right in between the two fingers. So grab this vertex and this vertex, Alt-M, and just merge them at last. Same here, so just Shift R to merge those. Pull back a little bit. Grab here and here. Shift R, here and here. Shift R, here and here. Shift R. Then just pull this vertex out a little bit. Okay, so now if we switch back over to the front view, you can see we've got some reshaping to do. So let's hit B. We can grab, well, let me hit A first so I don't have anybody selected that I don't need to. Let's hit B and just grab these, and I'll turn on not just proportional editing, but connected, so I don't accidentally get any other parts of the other fingers. We can hit G and then just play with your radius until you get right out there to the base, and you see what connected is doing. Even though the index finger is definitely included in that radius, it's not actually being pulled along because we're only grabbing those connected vertices, which is a nice little trick. So we can pull that out to the tip of the finger. And then from here, I would just grab edge loops and just begin by scaling. So let me go ahead and turn off proportional editing because we don't really need that anymore. And let's just hit S. I can pull that out. I could probably get away with a low level of proportional editing here and scale these all as one. So yeah, so something kind of like this. And that's pretty close here. I could just turn off proportional editing, grab these two edges and pull them out a little bit. Maybe even switch over to vertices and make a few manual adjustments. Don't ever be afraid to just grab verts. That's really the essence of modeling. And I think somebody did say earlier, so we're really just using the tools we already know to do stuff. I mean, yeah. That's really the essence of modeling.
Welcome to modeling.
Yeah, that's really the essence of modeling. You can make an entire model with just a couple of tools. And make a really good model, actually. And if you don't see your circle when you're doing proportional editing, please keep in mind that it could be very, very large or very, very small. Okay, so barring a little bit of tweaking, we're probably ready to move on to the next finger, but I want to give a really quick ready check for folks to kind of catch up. Okay, so next, obviously we got that first part done. Now, the ring finger is closer in size and proportion to the index finger, so I wouldn't even go and grab the middle finger and copy it over. I would just do what we did before. Just grab the vertices for the index finger and just duplicate that over. So again, we'll just hit Control plus, go all the way up to here, make sure I didn't grab anyone I didn't need to, because that happens. And again, we'll just hit Shift D, pull that over, and jump over to the front view. And once again, we'll rotate this into place, and go ahead and go to wireframe, and just sort of line it up for where the base of the finger should be, and then we have some work to do to get everything attached. And while I'm sitting right here, I'm going to pull these up just a tad, just because I saw them and it was bugging me. So Alt-M at last, Shift-R, we've seen this. Let me get out of orthographic view because that's annoying. And carefully grab these two, which are right in between the fingers, as we can see, and Shift R. And just kind of center those up. We'll probably have to take the flesh in between the fingers and make a few minor adjustments to that, but that sort of thing is to be expected and isn't really a big deal. So, make sure I didn't lose my command. Shift R, and I think that's everybody. We should be nice and attached now. Now we do have some overlapping taking place in here. Not going to stress it just now. We can clean that up here in just a few minutes with some tweaking. So no real big deal there. Alright, so let's see. If we jump back over to the front view, we could make a few minor changes here. So let's get the outline done, and then I'll take a look in kind of a perspective style view and see if there's anything that needs particular bits of cleaning up. And take a look at my smooth. I mean, that's following along pretty nicely overall. Could go ahead and pull these back a little, because we know we're going to need to sooner or later. Okay. So let's rotate around and see what we've got. Alright, well, if I wanted to untangle all of these guys, I would just start with my vertices here, pull some separation there. That just about did it. Pull these forward just a little. Same here, we'll just pull this vertex right in between the fingers. Just kind of tug that forward.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
About this, because if this was just a static model that you were going to, it was a high-res model and you wanted it all to look nice and smoothed, and that was only the thing that was going to happen. When you get to areas like this, you wouldn't be worried about the low-res cage crossing up.
Oh, no.
But, sticking through each other. But is that a problem with game engines and so forth?
No.
That's still going to be okay.
Like having geometry kind of interpenetrate itself a little bit?
Yeah, because at areas like this, you either put a ton of geometry in, or you've got to cross up the low res.
Yeah, and you wouldn't need
high res to work.
You wouldn't really need to worry about it too much on a game engine if it's a tiny little thing, but really it wouldn't even need to necessarily be adding a lot more geometry so much as just positioning the geometry you have just so.
Right. Yeah.
And there's our third finger. So let's go ahead and slap on our next one. Now this one I can probably get let's do things a little bit differently this time around. Not too differently, but a little differently. I grab the ring finger, and I don't need that guy, so he can just be deselected. And again, Control plus, but I'm not going to go all the way back. We'll actually stop it here. And go to the front view, Shift D, click, let's rotate that around. I could probably just get away with a nice uniform scale to get the pinky started. I mean, it really is just kind of a smaller version of all the rest of your fingers. Get that sort of lined up. Then, instead of trying to do all those merges and welds and things, let's do something a little different. You're not muted, Gav, just so you know. In case you decide...
Sorry.
No, it's fine, just in case, you decide to... spontaneously burst into song, or
No, that was last night.
ah, yes,
I didn't know Buzz had a singing voice.
he kind of does.
Yeah, I suggested we start a 3D Buzz Barbershop Quartet.
Anyway, let's see, let's pull this over and just make a little bit of a gap in between the fingers here, so that now we can just switch over to edges, grab this edge, and make sure you grab the correct corresponding edge from finger to finger, and you just tap F, and you can just start connecting these back in. So rather than have to go through all of the merging, you can just do it this way if you want to. And you be the judge as to which method you prefer. Just don't do what I just did right there.
No.
And there you go. So now we can just switch over to Vertices and kind of clean up the profile, rotate around, double check the front view. Obviously a little bit of cleanup to do to get the shape just right, but that's okay. That's easily done. I'll use a little bit of proportional editing here to kind of pull some stuff around. And it looks like I was moving some of those as well, which, you know, I could get bent out of shape about, or I could just, you know, not. But it would be a good idea to make sure I'm set to connected. Okay, so there we go, and if we rotate around this, we can see a couple of things. One, we no longer have that nice flattening across the bottom of the palm to the fingers, so we're going to want to correct that. So if I jump back here to perspective, that may be a little bit easier to see. So I would just start by cleaning those up. It may be a good idea just to go ahead and turn this guy on so I can slide out in Y just a little bit. But then, of course, you probably ought to take a moment and correct that all the way down the fingers. Let's also check the side view. Now, our fingers aren't lining up perfectly with the side view, but they're doing relatively well, all things considered. I mean, we know that the pinky and the ring finger, there's a little bit of an arc. If you were to take a look down the hand, there should be kind of an arc to the attachment here, which we can go ahead and create, even at this stage. And I would do that by grabbing vertices here. Let's go ahead and turn connected on and Control plus all the way up the hand. Not to the far end, but, you know, kind of close. In fact, I think I'm going to pull it back just a little bit, just to the end of the finger. If I get a couple of rogue vertices in there, that should be okay. Meaning vertices I didn't necessarily mean to select, but they came along, and I'll just consider that a happy accident. And let's move this forward. We're also taking a little bit of the palm with us. We can rotate that very slightly and position. I'm not trying to move up and down too much, simply because we kind of have things already lined up in the front view, so we don't need to disturb that too terribly much, as you might have guessed. And same thing here. Hit G, and actually let me just slide it forward from here. We can rotate it back a little bit. And that's pretty good. And then now it'd just be a matter of double checking all of your geometry here. Let me turn off proportional editing. Kind of clean some things up, get rid of my manipulator. Go ahead and get back out to perspective view.
Some Ironside did ask, how does the proportional editing in Blender stack up against Max and Maya? And I find it actually, comparing it with Max, it actually does what you want a lot more of the time.
I mean, I don't work with Max too much anymore these days, to be perfectly fair. I would stack it pretty much equal with Maya. I can't really think of a reason not to. I do like Maya's color coding when doing what they call soft selection, which is really just proportional editing. I really do like that. But, you know, you can't have everything, so it's right up there. It does exactly what you need it to do. Okay, so I think we're at a really good point, not only to let everybody kind of catch up, but I think for a quick break. So let's go ahead and we'll stop this video here, and we will pick up and commence with maybe cleaning up the fingers, adding on a thumb, and working our way up the arm in the next video.